Here we go. Welcome into our space here on a huge day, the Trump inauguration, as we are all awaiting to see what changes come as President Trump takes the oath of office and kicks off his second term as president. A lot going on over the weekend as we saw Bitcoin reach an all-time high off the backs of not just one, but two Trump meme coin launches, one for him and one for Melania. A lot to discuss, not just for what this means for crypto, but also potentially for the world's largest economy as well. And happy to have back on Coinage with us today, Dragonfly's general partner, Rob Haddock on Coinage. Rob, I think this is the first time we've had you on this year. It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, Zach, and glad to be here again. Did a few times last year, but lots to talk about today.
A lot to dig into, and I know you were glued to the charts and to Twitter as I was, and basically everybody in crypto and around politics was as well. As we want to dig into, I think, first off, just the moves that you saw, because basically this Trump meme coin launched and quickly topped $10 billion in terms of the market cap. 80% is going to be locked up for the team. There's a lot to dig into, I guess, on that one first. We'll get into Melania and your reaction to that a little bit later. But what was Rob's reaction to all this as we saw the incoming president of the United States? It's kind of crazy to consider what we saw over the weekend, but dropping a meme coin and what that means for the market.
It is honestly unprecedented. The craziest weekend in crypto probably since FTX in November of 22. I was pretty measured about the whole thing. I think there are good and bad parts about, or at least that's what I thought on Friday, good and bad parts about this. There was just more attention. There was going to be, more people onboarded, millions of new people who potentially own these tokens. The Moonshot app was #1 in the App Store. There was clearly it signaled to like U.S. entrepreneurs that the U.S. was open for business, that there is more innovation ready to happen here in the U.S., that we want them to be here, that there will be a more constructive regulatory framework. And so I was positive about that. I think there's a lot of real questions around things like federal like corruption mandates and concerns around what this means for like foreign funding into these tokens, et cetera. I think there's a lot of concerns around what it means for like partisanship more broadly. Does it make something like a market structure bill tougher to pass because there's going to be more of this political lightning rod in Washington that has where the Democrats are even more against crypto because of what happened here. So I think there were good and bad parts about what happened on Friday. The 80% insider allocation, terrible, like really awful. They're clearly getting just bad advice, and my guess is that there's some really grifty advisors around this that are like really trying to value extract. A really interesting point is that the total crypto market cap is actually down since Friday. So there is less money on chain today than there was on Friday night. But that was something that they maybe could have fixed over time. They could have restructured it, with good feedback. They hear the community, and it was really cool that they did it on chain. So they did it, through Meteora and Jupiter, instead of doing it, at like a centralized exchange, et cetera. That my opinion on all of this, which was maybe net good or at least good and bad, that changed a lot when Melania dropped and kind of what we saw happen over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, I want to get into that too, because I do think it is pretty interesting to consider, doing it once. I was in the same camp. I thought, hey, look, it is what it is. It's a meme coin. Do I necessarily think that it's the best use of the president's power to launch a meme coin rather than maybe highlight some of the projects like ours or other ones in Web3? There are a lot of things, I'm sure, you and I have talked about them too. Really good examples of where Web3 tech and DePIN and the like can be used in the world and DeFi around the world, and then to just basically use that clout and I think momentum as being quote unquote the crypto president to highlight and drop a meme coin that, as he said, I think objectively, granted, people can gamble on this, and I myself, to be clear, did buy some on the night that it dropped just because I'm also in the trenches, as you know, Rob. But I mean, it's very clear to say that the people who will benefit most from this will be people attached to Trump or the president himself, I believe. And you're right to point out Melania. I want to bring that chart up too, because I do think that, when that happened, a lot of people changed their minds just as you did, because we saw the Trump token itself take a dip just because I think there are limits to launching this in terms of liquidity and excitement. Once that one launched, you saw the Trump token drop by about 40%. A lot of people who had come in off the FOMO were then in the red. And I know, these things swing, but what did you make of that? Because everything you mentioned in terms of moonshot and onboarding Web2 normies did not happen with that one. It was a tough launch, straight to deck screener. Phantom kind of tricky to swap there. What changed for you?
Yeah, so you're right that they did it again with no forewarning. There wasn't like appropriate liquidity. There clearly wasn't planning. They didn't work with Jupiter or Meteor or any of these teams. They did it really haphazardly. There wasn't like a multi-sig set up beforehand, and there was even more of the tokens for insiders than less. There's 87% in this case, and even a quicker vesting schedule than the 3 months that is the Trump 80%, which is just outrageous, honestly, and like it is indefensible. And it when that happened, and then the Donald's or the president's Twitter immediately retweeted it, and everybody was just rushing in, and they were selling everything to get into this thing. It really highlighted how non-serious this was, and how this was all about just making these tokens go up. And to your point, like all of a bunch of the RPC nodes kind of fell over. The chain was full, but was still up. But the RPC nodes were not were falling over, and Phantom was just getting too many transactions to process. And some of that is actually a good thing for the future of Solana and the future of these services, because that type of hardening effect allows you to continue to make these things better. And to be
Mhm.
very clear, what we saw over this weekend from the amount of transactions, and that is something that would have like Cloudflare was going to fall over, like a bunch of Web2 services were going to fall over. This thing was like unprecedented. This was not a indictment in any way on any of the RPC nodes or Phantom or anybody. It is actually, I think, really bullish and positive how well Solana did, and a lot of the call it service providers around it did. But what is not bullish is clearly that the Trump family does not seem to want to highlight the technology in the way that I do, right? And the builders in this space who I'm close to, you're close to, they're not focused on that. We were all hoping that there was a new world or a new regime or that was going to help us further the innovation of decentralized finance and remaking the traditional financial systems, and
Mhm.
furthering the stable coins, and for allowing for just a more technologically advantageous financial system. And clearly, like, that's not the concern, at least not at the moment.
No, but that was the hope, I think. And, I just want to bring up one thing to push the point further, Rob, because I think, again, over the weekend, it was the case that you had the crypto ball, basically everyone in the industry down in DC to celebrate what I think has been a war fought well. All of us coming together and saying, look, we're not going to stand for what Gary Gensler's SEC is doing to this industry, which I think we can all agree was necessary and good. But then the other piece of it is, as everyone's in that room, Trump drops his meme coin, which I do commend the president. I say that it was good that he didn't necessarily, come out and give everyone heads up and let everyone in that room in the industry front run this, because that was not what we heard from our sources there. It wasn't as if this was announced. But the big
Yep.
question I have, Rob, is, you've got the president coming in here. He now has these two meme coins. As you brought up, there are potential worries about foreign entities using that coin to potentially get access to things, or the president prioritizing that coin versus the wants and needs of Americans here, to be
Yeah.
frank. And I think it is a question. I mean, look, obviously anyone can drop a meme coin. I'm not saying they can't, but it is very different when we're talking about the president of the United States dropping a meme coin. And I talked to a bunch of lawyers over the weekend too about this, and it did seem like, if you put two and two together, the Melania launch did seem rushed, did seem like it happened right before the inauguration, as if to get ahead of some of those concerns and questions that would have been asked if either one of these launched after President Trump was sworn in, just given the fact that the Constitution does prevent a president from profiting from the office, whether from the federal government, him using his position of power to profit from the federal government, or foreign governments.
Yep.
And I think he set this up in a way that does allow him to say, look, I'm not involved in it. It's a separate company running both Melania's and Trump's meme coins here, CSC Digital and the other company for Melania. And so I think he knows what he's doing, but it doesn't answer a lot of questions about, are there potential risks here for Americans like you and myself, Rob? And that's kind of what I put to you now is are there concerns like that for you?
Yeah, of course. I don't think no American, I think, can reasonably make the argument today that there's not at least a risk, right? And there's a lot of people who have had really strong reactions to this on both sides of the aisle. It does feel like a lot of the people's opinions have been jaded by just kind of how their politics align, and a lot of how they've entrenched themselves over the last 6 9 months. But putting that aside, I don't think there is an intellectually honest argument today that doesn't at least admit that there is some risk involved in this, especially around call it the foreign governments piece, like you mentioned. I mean, this is unconfirmed, but we've seen publicly that Justin Sun had said that he put a bunch of money into World Liberty Financial overnight. We've heard from unconfirmed sources that there has been things like Saudi money or other types of capital that have come into World Liberty Financial that is maybe not just a bunch of retail traders who are trying to align themselves with Trump or make money off of this, et cetera. And when you start to hear that, when you start to see that, you have to, at least in the back of your mind, start to wonder if this isn't something that, even if it's maybe good for crypto and for new users and for focus on the industry and for furthering the cause of decentralized finance, if it's not bad for Americans, and it's not bad for the rule of law, and it's not bad for public policy, and it's not bad for what is likely to occur in this country that is already extremely divided over the next 2 4 years. And I think the risk here is also that this becomes so political that 4 years from now we have this huge snapback if there's a change in administration or there's a change in the SEC. And it's not to say that the SEC, Paul Atkins is a real guy, and he's
Hmm.
going to want to enforce current SEC regs, and he's going to do so in a much more pro innovation way than we've had in the past. But I worry about, we get this period of a lot of scams, a lot of grifting from a lot of people who will learn the wrong lesson here, and then we have this huge snapback and potentially retroactive kind of enforcement or engagement with regulators that just really puts us in a bad place over time.
Yeah, I think, putting it all together, I think the big question now, Rob, is what this means for the space. And obviously, we're a crypto show here, so we focus in on crypto. And, there are stories to watch. I don't think we're going to get the answers in day one or day two of these meme coins trading. I think, you probably got hit up as much as I did from friends and everybody else saying, hey, what's the deal with this? What should I do here? And it's really tough to talk about meme coins because, I don't know, Godspeed to anyone who's trying to do any chart analysis on those. There's no way you could have
Yep.
predicted Melania coming out unless you knew about it, and you
Well,
wouldn't have been
and
able to
to be
predict.
clear, like with Melania and the way there wasn't with Trump, there was clear front running. Like there were people involved in that, even though people couldn't get in. And so, like, it's clear that this was meant as like value extractive, and we saw this with some of the wallet tracking, and that makes it. Listen, it's really indefensible, to be honest. It really, I've heard from very few people who like post the Melania situation are like, this feels good. Right. I don't think anybody really feels good about how, and nobody who's worked in the industry, because all of us have been here, or at least most of us have been here, hoping for kind of a better future. And to your point, I want to kind of put a really fine point, a point on it. There is there's what is good for crypto on in a first order effect, but there crypto, as we've seen for kind of the past few months, and the correlation to the Nasdaq has actually reached all-time highs again, and crypto often trades as a risk asset. And if you put that in perspective, this type of volatility and anything that is bad for, call it, the rule of law in America and public policy, will be bad for risk assets and will ultimately be bad for crypto prices and crypto of itself, even if this is bringing in more users, bringing more attention to the space, et cetera.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that point because it's something that we'll probably play in between once we're done chatting with you this morning and covering the inauguration live, as we have a bit of our interview with Hester Peirce. SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce, talking about kind of what changes at the SEC, seeing as right now it is only Republicans over there. Essentially, Gary Gensler going to be, well, I guess he's gone. Today was the day that he was supposed to resign, and now officially gonzo. And we're waiting for incoming Chair Atkins, as you said, to come in once approved and confirmed by the Senate. And I think, there are real questions now about what happens in terms of trust in markets, and not just crypto, like you said, capital markets. Like the SEC, as Gensler said in his sign-off note, crypto is one thing, but the rest of confidence in American markets could be in the balance here. And I think it is rather important to consider those things and what changes in the new SEC. But Rob, I mean, when you kind of put all the pieces together and look at the charts for Bitcoin, we did hit an all-time high, and I'm not going to give all the credit to President Trump on that, but it was interesting to see kind of some of the liquidity get sucked out. I can bring up the Solana chart in a second, but basically see Solana jump up as you would expect since the meme coin was launched on Solana. But then once Melania launched and kind of all the meme coins on Solana, see the huge outflow of funds from all of those essentially into Trump. It's sucked up the mind share, and it's sucked up liquidity in a way that I don't think a lot of people considered. There are a lot of really good projects out there too that got dinged. I mean, what do you see happening if this is just an early preview of what 2025 is going to look like?
Yeah, it's interesting because the way we invest and what we're focused on is the technology, right? We're really focused on what are the things people are building on the core infrastructure side that can recreate a better financial and more inclusive financial system. We're really focused on things like DeFi that we think in many ways operate better than CeFi. We really focused on things like stable coins and things that we think will just kind of further the proliferation of this technology and a better financial system. And I think a lot of that takes a step back. If we're now in a world where everybody sees that, hey, listen, I can make some money, and this will lessen over time, right? So the Trump token goes to 70 bill, the Melania token goes to 12 or 13. The next one will go to less. Maybe Elon will launch one and that'll go really high again. But then every other person who wants to make a little bit of money will launch one, and all of those will be less and less and less, and people will desensitize. But that will be the focus, and we see it where people start to they want to make money on these things, and a lot of the traders are looking to kind of play these kind of big jumps in prices and then get out. And so everyone's just selling other stuff to rotate into these other things, and then they're selling it back out. And we see this rotation time and time again, which is why all of these other things dumped on Friday and dumped a little bit during Melania. I do think Bitcoin is a bit unique, and not just a bit unique, very, very unique. And so that didn't really have the same kind of outflow in the way you saw from all of the other stuff. That has continued to perform well. There's been a lot more focus on a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Poly market actually jumped, I think, to a 56 or 57% chance, up more than double this week on how likely they think a strategic Bitcoin reserve is. There's speculation that the strategic Bitcoin reserve executive order happens in the next couple of days. There's questions around whether Trump can legally do that and how he would legally do that, but whether or not however that gets litigated over time, and if it goes through legislation or not, that sort of signal for Bitcoin as a reserve asset and for all of the institutions who are continuing to see Bitcoin as part of their portfolio allocation, that's great for that asset specifically. For the rest of the market, I think a lot of the focus is going to be on, these meme coins or these celebrity tokens, and not on, necessarily the things that, all of us are hoping will kind of reinvent the world and the current global financial system. But there is a possibility that we look back at this 3 months from now and we see this as a blip, and it was a crazy time, and now it's back to regular programming. But I have a concern that that won't be true.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be one of those things to watch, and even in the DeFi space. By the way, when we talk about projects that have existed in terms of what we might see in the continuation of a lot of the things that I think you and I and a lot of people in crypto are excited about, is really taking on big banks, and it's very strange to see World Liberty Financial now take off in a way that Donald Trump Jr. was talking about it in August of this year, or sorry, last year, talking about taking on the big banks, that they weren't going to do a meme coin, that this was all about, really leaning into helping the unbanked, which I'm not entirely sure. Again, I have no dog in this fight. Really, honestly, don't care one way or the other how you feel politically. But just in terms of maybe the poster children of the debanked, I'm not entirely sure if the Trump children would be the people I imagine in my head. But I do think the way that that project has been launched, as you mentioned, Justin Sun also involved, a bunch of people outside the US involved. I don't know what that looks like because they went the accredited investor route, and you keep piecing all these things together. And regardless of how you feel politically, if you're coming from a pro crypto mindset, Rob, there are a lot of people, and I'd be curious to get your take as a VC here. There are a lot of people who are very upset with the way that even crypto has kind of seen VCs take allocations. We talked about this before, VC dumping on people. We saw the AICC token launch that pissed a lot of people off after Bankless Ventures dumped on people. And so I wonder if how much of this is brought on by the industry itself by not fully leaning into actually walking the walk when it comes to read, write, own and what Chris Dixon's book is all about. And yet we see the things that A16Z does. So I'm just curious, as someone in that world, how much of this you feel like is on VC's shoulders or the industry itself, or maybe not being fully Web3 or walking the walk?
Well, none, zero. Maybe you're surprised by that answer, but listen,
I'm
I think
not.
there's a couple things. I mean, listen, you didn't tell me you were going to ask that question, and I appreciate you kind of jumping that on me right here. So I can affirmatively say, no, I don't think the Trump meme coin is VC's fault at all. No, but listen, I'll say this. I think there's a couple points to your question. First is just like world liberty itself, right? And to your point, they went the accredited investor route. They've talked about banking the unbanked. I think that conversation, no matter who it comes from, like there are a lot of entrepreneurs of all backgrounds who are trying to build good DeFi protocols. And to be fair, like this is a different team than the Trump meme coin was, and the Trump meme coin was a different team than the Melania meme coin. And the team that is doing World Liberty Financial, are ex Ethereum, DeFi founders that from a thing called Doe Finance. And I think they're just, I think a lot of these things are happening in silos. That said, on the World Liberty Financial side, I expect we'll see like a real, I would say, change and how that is put together. I think they've gone the accredited investor route. It's supposed to be non-transferable. Like, to your point, I think all of that changes and they just restructure the whole thing now that, the Trump meme coin has kind of laid the foundation,
Hmm.
and that they just decide that accredited doesn't matter anymore. We'll see if that happens. I have no inside information, but like I think they'll just full value extraction, just change the whole thing. Now, to your question about like whether or not VCs, dumping on retail, like et cetera, like I've been pretty outspoken about this. That I think it's like a very silly conversation, and I think frankly most of that conversation has been pushed by traders. Like, and we're talking whales, like other funds, et cetera, who are just have their own incentives, and their incentive is to try to launch these things that are quote unquote fair launches, but get a lot of their own early allocations that are essentially at venture capital, or early valuations, and then go and pump them on their Twitters to a bunch of other people and be like, "Fair launch! It was so fair. All of us insiders, it doesn't matter that we got them. It was fair, right?" And so I think the reality is that like there are venture capitalists who certainly in the space who certainly engage in practices that I would not condone, and
Hmm.
then there are those I think who are want nothing better or want nothing more than to back like founders who are trying to um, you know really kind of like I've continued to say, like reinvent the financial system or continue to innovate, and who just need some capital and some help to be able to go and do that. And that's what we
Yeah.
do. That's what I do. Um, but I think and we've talked a little bit about Echo and these other things, and I think having community building and getting allowing people to participate in the success of those projects, like that is important, but that is
Yeah.
not dichotomous with venture capital. That is part of and hand in hand with a fundraising strategy and a community building strategy, much like what you've done here at Coinage.
Yes, well, I appreciate the answer, and I didn't mean to come across as accusatory because let me make it clear that we love Rob Haddock and we love Dragonfly and we love you coming on the show.
We love you guys
What I'm
too.
talking about is over the weekend we had a lot of blowback, I think, in terms of people in the meme coin space who are like, hey, don't come for my meme coins. This is all fun and games, and it's, gambling's gambling. And look, I think that's fine. But I do think that the reason why we've had the Murads of the world come out and say invest in Colts and buy meme coins and hold them is because there is the same angst that came out of the GameStop saga for people saying, I don't like the old system, burn it to the ground. And we're seeing a lot of some of those shenanigans come over into the crypto side. And clearly, whenever there are those arguments made, a lot of the anger and angst is sometimes directed towards, VCs and the quote unquote tech, which I don't necessarily agree with that point either, because look at what's happening with Solana and everyone's saying, oh, we don't want the tech. It's like Solana was the tech and it's 10x, and look at what's happening on the chain. And so I don't think that argument is right either. But yes, you're right. I'm hoping, by the way, we've had conversations with a lot of different people, and it has been tough to launch a project that is not based on grow chain drop token. But I am hoping, and my whole point over the weekend was I'm hoping that people in the space wake up and say, all right, what do we really want to support here? And I appreciate you saying that about Coinage, because that's what we're trying to do here in terms of creating a community-owned outlet and letting people buy an NFT that opens up dividends, not just allowed for accredited investors, because it takes a lot of effort and time to pursue that and open it up to anybody. And I do mean anybody. You can mint one right now. But Rob, I think when we look ahead to this, when you put all the pieces together and you think about some of the things that had people more bullish to wrap up 24 and the reality of them, you mentioned kind of the idea of strategic reserve. We'll see what happens when Trump speaks today at the inauguration, whether or not he's going to mention any of that or his meme coins. But the idea of getting a strategic reserve was already shaky anyways. You really do need
Yep.
congressional approval for that. At the Bitcoin conference, he promised just holding all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently owns, which is possible. But when you consider kind of some of these other polymarket odds, which we'll bring up, I have a feeling that he's spent a lot of political capital now. And I think that's where the other piece of the anger is coming from. People are waking up to the idea of, is he really going to push for a Bitcoin reserve? Can Democrats get on board with that after what happened this weekend? What do you think about what's happening in DC and all the effort that's gone into lobbying DC that could potentially have been spent already?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of the concern, right? And to your point about, the SBR, obviously that Loomis bill has been kind of sitting out there for a while, talking about, putting up to 5% of the treasury in Bitcoin. And the administration or the upcoming administration has been talking about, potentially putting, an executive order out there about, an SBR. Maybe they have some sort of ability to do this through, the Federal Reserve that doesn't require legislation. Potentially, that is, I think, to your point, going to be hotly contested and definitely litigated if it happens. We also know that there's a bunch of states out there who are actively starting to put together legislation within their state houses of state governments to potentially do Bitcoin reserves at the state level. I think all of that. Frankly, I think it's this is my personal opinion. It's pretty silly. Like clearly, like there are a lot of ways to run a treasury, and there are a lot of ways to run a U.S. dollar, and I don't think any of them smartly probably have really volatile assets that's in underneath them. This has nothing to do with Bitcoin, has nothing to do with crypto. Just volatility in assets should probably not be backing of the U.S. dollar. That's just my personal opinion. It goes back to I think kind of core economics, right?
Yeah.
That said, I think the to your second question, like to the political capital piece, like this is what's clear is that like now crypto is part of the Trump family business, and they are going to want to further the Trump family business. He always has, right? And that means that this is going to continue to be a focus of his, but it also means that he has decided that he is going to make this more partisan, or he just maybe he hasn't decided that explicitly, but implicitly that's what's happened, right? So things like reasonable conversations around, I think maybe less so on the SBR side, but more like call it a market structure bill that was going to already be hotly debated around what qualifies as a broker dealer and what's a commodity, what's a security, something like that, which I was hopeful to get. And was going to need and does need, a lot of people coming across the aisle and working together. That
Mhm.
looks to be, in my mind, a much bigger political lightning rod that's going to be a lot harder to pass now.
Well, if you're just joining us right now, we're chatting with Rob Haddock, general partner at Dragonfly, one of the top VCs in the crypto space. And Rob, a Coinage member, or at least a subscriber tier. Hopefully, we can step you up this year with more appearances. Love having you on the show as always. And we're going to be covering live from DC the Trump inauguration here, which we will be taking live on the stream in just a few moments. But Rob, while we have you and kind of unpacking everything you just walked us through, in terms of the meme coin launches, Bitcoin, Solana, everything that happens in this space. We also do want to highlight that we just crowned Solana our crypto project of the year over the weekend because not because of what happened with the Trump meme coins, but just because of our community saying that they got the most done in 24 and are most optimistic about what happens in 25. You yourself had nominated Polymarket, which we also had in the competition. Prediction markets are another huge thing that I think get very interesting this year. Dragonfly, obviously an investor in Polymarket. But you had Trump Jr. Joining Kalshi as an advisor, the competitor, another prediction market. And I'm just kind of curious because that was such a huge narrative in 24 in terms of the use case of crypto, in terms of people using crypto to navigate markets. I'm curious what you make of what other things like that might happen in 25, what you see as the growth opportunity there. How does that trend continue, or is there something else that you're watching when it comes to mainstream adoption? Could be meme coins.
Yeah, so I think meme coins are clearly going to be top of the list, especially after what happened this week. Like there is no doubt about it. With the amount of supply that we're going to see of meme coins from all types of celebrities, politicians, etc., that's going to balloon. That's something we should all be ready for, and that's probably going to be a liquidity suck from some of the things that I think have been, really interesting, like a poly market, etc. That said, probably, and this is, I think not surprising, but probably the thing I'm most bullish on this year is really starting to see actual usage of stablecoins in payments. So stablecoins, obviously they've continued to grow dramatically. There were over 200 billion. That has been a number that has continued to kind of inch up every month over month. But what we've seen a lot of is there's been some peer-to-peer happening in emerging markets. There's been a lot of DeFi use. There's been a lot of USDT used on centralized exchanges for trading. But we really started to see kind of pick up in the back half of last year was now real world use cases of large or mid-sized companies for things like payouts, contractor payments, payroll, stuff like that, and also just like cross-border payments, B2B payments. All of those things started to grow extremely quickly in the space. And I think one of the things that we'll be talking about at the end of this year is probably a more decentralized version of what is essentially an on-chain, FX clearinghouse for payments that is really reinventing the way cross-border or like a Wise for business or wallets do business. And that's something that I think will be, if not the biggest kind of change in
Yeah.
use case for this year, among it.
Well, the other big thing, too, I wanted to get your take before we let you go on agents is the idea of AI playing a larger and larger role and how that fits into crypto. We've seen some early experimentation with AI agents and tokens tied to AI agents. I think it's rather interesting, though, that at this inauguration, you're going to have not just Elon Musk, but also Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and TikTok CEO, and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. So basically, everybody in tech is at this thing. And I think we've seen before the administration is not being so friendly to some tech giants under Democrats. And when you consider AI being such a hot piece of not just traditional markets, but also the crypto market, I mean, are you more in the camp that that's a net good, a net bad, how some of those deals might shake out? Because we've had a few guests come on and say, look, this AI agent narrative is overblown. It's not real yet. Stay tuned. But I think the early primitives are there for kind of on-chain bots transacting, as you said. It opens up a lot of possibilities. But what does Rob Haddock say about kind of what people should be considering when it comes to investing in AI tokens, just as kind of how hot they were to kick off the year, kind of lost some momentum after Trump shenanigans?
Yeah, so the current state or the current meta of like AI agent tokens is primarily, just basically Twitter bots with meme coins. Like that's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. Like there is not really like much else happening. Like yes, AI16Z, has this, GitHub repository that, is extremely active and that people are using in terms of a framework. But mostly, these things have existed in just like people wanting to trade the momentum of AI more broadly. I am hopeful that here's what I would say: agents are coming, and like agents are going to be a big part of everything we do on chain or off chain. Like Jensen Huang was very clear about this when he spoke at CES. Like we're moving into an agentic economy. Like there is going to be a very clear use case for agents to transact on chain and maybe to be involved in certain types of payments, etc.
Hmm.
What exists on chain today in that meta is mostly just all mimetic, frankly.
Yeah, but is
And
it
that
what
doesn't
would be
mean.
the advice then though to people, right, that are kind of in retail trading these? Because AI 16Z, as we were showing the chart, off by about 25% this week, as some of that momentum comes out of it. But I mean, is a better way to play it just kind of, I suppose, I'd hate to say it to everybody who hates the tech, but maybe buying the picks and shovels in some of these ecosystems that are enabling maybe some of the speeds that are required for transactions among agents, some of the, I guess, tooling that's required for the agents. How do you kind of see, I guess, the best opportunities for the average investor?
Well, so I don't give financial advice. The SEC doesn't allow me to do that. So,
Yes.
but what I would say broadly is like the market's not going away. I would focus on things that people believe will be able to build ecosystems around them, and that will be able to subsist longer than just and do things more than just tweet, right? I so like maybe focus on that. Picks and shovels, we're obviously big believers in continuing to further what those picks and shovels look like. I think the reality is like with this Solana meme coin weekend and how well the chain performed, and it's clear that a lot of what will be enabled on in crypto is going to happen in like low latency, high throughput chains. And so continuing to figure out where there's interesting economies being built in these like low latency, high throughput places is going to be very important. And so maybe that's a way that people can use the framework to figure out how they want to invest their money.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of this influx, and we'll see exactly what shakes out today, even and very shortly thereafter. But I do know one thing, Rob, and that is that our community and myself personally appreciate you coming on every time because we always learn something, and it's always super helpful to hear your thoughts. And again, appreciate the time because I know you could be anywhere right now. And good luck, by the way, to your Buckeyes because
Go Bucks.
big day.
Yeah.
Despite
Yep.
everything that's going on, let's not forget the important things here in this country, which is football among above everything else, if you ask me. So good luck to your
That's right.
Buckeyes.
Thanks, Zach. I really appreciate it. I had a ton of fun.
All right, thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. There you go. Dragonfly's GP Rob Haddock joining us there on Coinage as we continue our live coverage here on Inauguration Day. Love everything that we just heard from Rob, really, Texas, in terms of, I guess, kind of, trying to take this step by step, trying to see what happens. Again, here at Coinage, I think it is very interesting. We try and give everyone the time to operate. We want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I think there are still certainly a lot of questions to ask when it comes to what some of these developments and meme coin launches might do to the space and might do to maybe change some of the narratives and momentum, prices, certainly everything that people in our community care about. But we do want to show a little bit of the live coverage here as, again, we will step aside whenever we do see some good juicy bits to document here on our stream. Of course, the only thing technically scheduled that I can promise is at 12 noon is when we will have the streaming in. But we do have some live shots of Trump's Cadillac, I believe that is, his limo rolling over to the Rotunda. Today's interesting because Trump is breaking with historical tradition in choosing to have his inauguration indoors. It will not be outside as it normally is, and some of that tradition has still been intact. This morning we did see President Trump attend service at St. John's Episcopal Church. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance also in attendance for prayer. Also the tea. If you haven't watched the clips from that, I don't know if that's happened yet. To be honest, we've just been chatting crypto all day. I don't know if the tea with President Biden has already happened at the White House before, but I think it did. Okay, yes, we are seeing a thumbs up from our producer confirming that we saw the tea happen. So this is a fun day. Look, this is a transition of power. If you like democracy, if you like the idea of smooth transitions of power, at least there's that. going on right now. And of course, we're going to see what Trump lays out in his speech. A very interesting time for not just the country, but also crypto in general, as we reset here and try and figure out what today is going to mean for prices for crypto, for Bitcoin, and the like. I do want to bring up the Bitcoin chart, which we'll be watching all day throughout our coverage as we bring some of this to you. We did have Bitcoin hitting an all-time high north of $108,000 over the midnight hours last night and into early morning today on Inauguration Day, giving back some of those gains today, as we do see Bitcoin dropping back down to 105. I say dropping back down to 105. If you zoom out and think about things from just a month ago, that'd be a crazy thing to say. Or maybe not so crazy, seeing as we were at 105 as the prior all-time high is 108 in December. Zoom out a little bit more. Zoom out before the election, and it would be a crazy thing to say. Even crazier, perhaps, to say would be that the president of the U.S. dropped a meme coin, and so did his wife. So there's a lot to unpack there, too. I do want to play some of the clips that set up maybe some of the questions we will have moving forward, not just on the meme coin front, but you heard from Rob Haddock off the beginning of the stream. A lot of questions with what the Trump family is potentially looking to do with their DeFi platform, World Liberty Financial. I just want to play, Texas, I think we have this clip, if we can play it, of Don Jr. talking about it back in August. I had hinted at this off the top of the show, but at the time, a lot of people were wondering what the Trumps wanted to do with their crypto efforts. Some people had bought a meme coin that purported to be the Trump's meme coin back there. I believe it was called Restore the Republic. It pumped and then it dumped because the Trumps were not behind Restore the Republic. And Don Jr. took to his podcast to talk about what the Trumps actually wanted to launch and hinted at everything but a meme coin. Interesting to look back on that clip and consider what has played out since August 2024. Take a listen to what Don Jr. said on his subscription podcast in this clip.
What we're talking about is sort of a larger type of platform. Not going to be sort of very different. It's not like it's not a meme coin. That's not what we're going to be talking about. But we got a long time before we can do it. I think what we want to do is sort of take on a lot of the banking world. I think there's been a lot of inequality in that. Only certain people can get financing. Only certain people can do these sorts of things. So this notion of decentralized finance is obviously sort of very appealing to guys like me who've been debanked or haven't been able to get insurance or whatnot, can't get mortgages because they don't check certain boxes, but others can.
I do think that there are a lot of concerns around debanking and the idea of unbanked people around the world needing access to DeFi and these platforms. I think that that is definitely true, and anyone in crypto would probably agree with that point. But again, it's kind of interesting to think about the context of that clip and how far we've come. And by we, I mean the Trumps in terms of what they're trying to build. World Liberty Financial has brought in quite a bit of money from around the world and investors from around the world. And right now, I think their token is taking in money as we speak at, I think, 5 cents a token. It'll be locked up, and so it is a little bit different. And as we said off the top of the show, restricted to accredited investors here in the U.S. But you heard Don Jr. talking about, hey, we're not going to do a meme coin. And we have the chart. I don't know if we want to go to it now, but here's the meme coin. And so it's like, how much can these things be trusted? And maybe to be clear, in that clip, it was the context of him correcting the record that they hadn't dropped that meme coin back in August, but said that meme coins wouldn't be what they're doing. And so I do think there was probably a time in there post-election, post-Trump going to the Bitcoin conference, post all of that, saying, hey, look, maybe we should do a meme coin. And we saw the Trumps launch that this weekend. And I do think, from a legal perspective, getting that done before he takes office, which we're about to see the swearing in just about an hour's time here, which we'll take live for you in the Rotunda. We have some live shots now. Right now, Texas, I think some good action happening now in the Rotunda as everyone's getting set for this. Seeing a lot of Trump supporters there. It'll be interesting to see which kind of Democrats. If you're a pro-crypto Democrat out there, by the way, which there aren't many, I do wonder what kind of political clout you have now as we see Vivek Ramaswamy coming into the Rotunda on this PBS stream I'm watching, Texas, which you can maybe bring up because you got Vivek Ramaswamy and Tulsi Gabbard. We highlighted this in the run-up to who was running for president in this cycle. Tulsi Gabbard, one of those people, too, that was out at the Bitcoin conference last year, talking about Bitcoin and what it means for freedom and why it's important. And, an interesting character coming from the Democratic Party, crossing over independent now at the Trump inauguration here as part of the team. Very interesting to kind of consider how all of these things have shaped people's views and maybe potentially caused them to switch political parties. RFK Jr. being another one of those examples, as potentially someone that would be an example of maybe swapping and joining Trump's group as well. You also have Howard Lutnick up there. We've talked about him in Cantor Fitzgerald, the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and the idea of him defending Tether and saying that the money that they have is there, standing by Tether, as so many questions have popped up about what they're doing. We're going to be heading down to El Salvador, by the way, to chat with Tether at their conference later on this month. So a lot of things to learn about what exactly is going on. But an exciting day, and nonetheless, as we await Trump's speech on Inauguration Day, and we will be bringing that to you live in just a few moments. Oh, look, you got Milei there as well, the president of Argentina, down in the Rotunda. There was a lot of questions about which financial leaders might be attending the inauguration, a lot of jockeying among foreign leaders for who might get the nod, who might get the invite. Very interesting to see President Milei from Argentina as one of those kind of Trump allies that we've talked about in LATAM. Not a lot of maybe potential allies around the world that have, expressed support before Trump won. Milei was certainly one of them. He was definitely one of the guys who came out and said, look, I'm here for it. He's spoken with Trump. He's spoken with Musk. And I think, as we've covered, Argentina is a very interesting market to watch when it comes to crypto adoption, what they've been able to do with their own economic policies. By the way, sometimes outside of crypto entirely, what Milei has done down there, shocking and extraordinary by all measures of the word in the turnaround for what was a inflation-ridden country. Riddled country, rather. It was a tough go down there if you talk to anybody, which I was just down there not too long ago in Argentina for Avalanche's conference. Very exciting to see the crypto adoption down there as it becomes one of those countries that has really rallied behind what this technology offers. Anyways, I want to reset. If you're just joining us, welcome into our Coinage live stream. We're going to be covering what President Trump says as he takes his oath of office and delivers a speech for the American public as he begins his second term as president. We'll be carrying that live from the Rotunda down in Washington, D.C. on this momentous day for not just the country, but for crypto, as we do see Bitcoin hit all-time highs this morning, north of $108,000, making history on day one as President Trump tries to make good on his promise to become crypto president of the world, to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. I think we do have a clip from what he said in his speech in Bitcoin Nashville last year. If you think about it, that was a momentous day as well, when he reset what the expectations might be for crypto in the U.S. if he were to win, really rallied support from the Bitcoin community, really rallied support from a lot of people in Nashville, and made some pretty big promises. Despite the fact that he said he would fire Gary Gensler, which Gary Gensler is now stepping down. I don't know if he deserves credit for that, just because Gary Gensler usually, the SEC chair, dips when his political party loses. But now you've got a lot of questions at the SEC. We're going to play a bit of Hester Peirce in a second from our interview with her not too long ago, for her saying that day one changes are coming. Well, guess what? It's day one. We'll see what changes are coming. But I do want to play what President Trump promised everybody down in Bitcoin Nashville, because we're going to be listening to hear potentially the early whispers of what he plans to do with executive orders around that Bitcoin reserve. Here's what he said back at Bitcoin Nashville in the summer of 2024 when his alliance with the crypto world really kicked off. Take a listen to what we heard from him then.
As the final part of my plan today, I am announcing that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile.
The strategic stockpile is the big question in terms of what I think everyone in crypto is watching today for any sort of key indications about what that might look like. Of course, we have Senator Lummis's bill that would have the country buy much more Bitcoin than just setting aside a strategic stockpile, as President Trump wants to do, using existing Bitcoin holdings that the government has from the Silk Road days and other confiscations, I suppose, in what they plan to do with the Bitcoin that they currently hold. And that is a big question because politically, it's not entirely clear if President Trump will be able to get that done. If you look at the odds, I think this is another thing that we just showed with Rob. I don't know if we have this Texas right now, but if we do, we can take that live and see that right now people are ascribing about a 55% chance that President Trump gets this reserve done in the first 100 days of being in office. That would be pretty fast, I think, in terms of all the priorities that President Trump's going to have to grapple with. He's clearly signaled that he wants cryptocurrency to be one of those issues that is front and center. And I think if anything over this weekend was an indication, clearly he does have crypto on the top of his mind. Not just what we're seeing play out with World Liberty Financial right now, his family's DeFi platform, in adding a bunch of ETH to that platform and continuing to raise money for that platform, but also what he's trying to do with the meme coins and what is happening with not just Trump, but also Melania, the two meme coins in question. So all of those things kind of wrapped into, I think, pre-inauguration day activities. And again, I don't want people to read too much into those because I think that he had to get that done before he's actually sworn in for consequences that could come, constitutional consequences, and avoiding being impeached again. You don't want to launch meme coins that could give the illusion or messaging that you are profiting from the office itself, because that's a big constitutional no-no and would be a very easy argument for Democrats to make, especially, by the way, let's not forget, a lot of the blowback, if you've been in crypto, you know this. A lot of the blowback always comes from price go down, number go down. If people are losing money, very easy to say, look, there was a crime committed here. Same thing happened with Terra, which if you watched her documentary with Do Kwon, you would know that because of collapses, it garners attention. And where is Do now? He is in jail in New York, which we are continuing to cover, by the way. So if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't liked, if you haven't retweeted this, now would be a good time. But the thing about it is that it does open Trump up. And so as many people are excited about this, it does raise particular worries when it comes to what happens with price, because now, whether he likes it or not, though I do think he likes it, his reputation is now linked to this coin. And so do with that information what you will. And we'll see if more launches come after he's sworn in, by the way, because there are still plenty of other family members that exist with the last name Trump that don't currently have meme coins. And so I think a lot of people are frothing at the mouth. You saw how many holders there were, by the way. Let's bring this one back up. I don't know how many holders there are right now, but 100, I think it was like 150,000 different unique holders in the Melania meme coin rather quickly, even faster than what we saw in the Trump launch, which I think has to do with just kind of how many people were waiting, as we heard from Rob Haddock, front running some of this listing, how many people were trying to get in as soon as it launched. And by the way, mind you, that allocation only has a lockup for Melania's meme coin of 30 days. So we're already 29 days away from a token unlock. Pretty substantial, by the way. Pretty substantial unlock for Melania's meme coin that will be coming. And so I think that is something to consider in terms of price action that we might see in her coin and in Trump's. Both of those unlocks are key to be watching because, as we know, as we saw when Trump's coin dropped 40% after Melania is launched, you got to contend with kind of what the liquidity is going to look like in these, because you're kind of appealing to the same audience, now split amongst two coins and unlocks on the horizon. So things to consider in terms of that. The other thing that I want to shift to while we wait for President Trump to be sworn into office and begin his second term as president is questions at the SEC. Currently, right now, we are waiting for the nomination process still for a few different key cabinet picks for President Trump as we look at all the different people in D.C. in these Rotunda shots. It is quite exciting to see so many faces there for the inauguration around Trump's team. right now. Kind of crazy to consider how many people and the market cap of just who's in that room right now. Not even just crypto, but tech giants, essentially kind of straddling everybody in Trump's team right now. We'll continue to show shots as we await President Trump to speak down there in D.C., because it's so strange to see some of these tech giants that, by the way, have not gotten along very well. You got Tim Cook and you got Mark Zuckerberg down there in the Rotunda. It wasn't too long ago that Zuck on Joe Rogan's podcast was taking pot shots at Apple for not having done anything recently. So I don't know. I've always wondered what it's like to be in those rooms. We talked with Hester Peirce, by the way, what it's like to be at the SEC and basically have to contend with shitting on Gary Gensler all day while you're still in the same meetings with him, and having pro-crypto people at the SEC while also having anti-crypto people at the SEC. How do these families function? And we all have dysfunctional families. Everyone's got to deal with family struggles. But, clearly Mark Zuckerberg's not in a family with Tim Cook. But I'm just saying, they're in the same room now. And as awkward as Jimmy Carter's funeral was, even when you got this happening in the inauguration, I'm sure there's a lot of weird, awkward conversations happening there too. But I do want to point to our Hester Peirce interview. SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce had come on Coinage not too long ago, and we asked her about some of the things that might change when you have a full Republican-controlled SEC, because basically with Gary Gensler's departure, there is no cop on the beat right now. There is no one checking what Trump might want to do with meme coins or with crypto, and he kind of has every card in his back pocket for what he wants to do with World Liberty Financial and these two meme coins, and leveraging them, as we've seen before SBF do with FTX and his own token in FTT. And I tweeted about this over the weekend too. I think it's a very important thing to consider. SBF made some calculated gambles and made some calculated bets, okay? SBF, however, made those gambles and bets while also potentially still facing consequences. If everything went down, he would potentially face jail time. He's now, been sentenced for 25 years and is also in jail not too far from where we are coming to you live in Brooklyn, New York from. Now, I say that because what happens when you remove the risk-reward, if you remove the risk from the equation, and the reward is even larger, what is President Trump going to do without maybe some of the backlash or consequences hanging over him? And we asked Hester Peirce at the SEC what that looks like when you have now a chair coming in that is handpicked by Trump that will also potentially be much more lenient when it comes to things that are done in crypto, and what that changes. And I just want to play what Hester Peirce told us just to kind of set the scene, as we all have, I think, a lot more questions about what the SEC looks like under a president that is dropping two meme coins back to back over the weekend. Here's what Hester Peirce told us. Are there maybe fears around the SEC as it shrinks? Maybe doesn't have as much differing opinions, as we said off the top. What do you tell people when it comes to that?
I think what I tell people is the reason we have the best capital markets in the world is because we regulate them well. And that means we set parameters that allow people a lot of flexibility within those parameters. And the markets can then speak. Investors from all over the country and all over the world can come here and they can express their opinions. Companies from all over the world can come here and raise money. You don't have to be wealthy in order to raise money in our capital markets. You don't have to know someone wealthy to do that. And so we need to do the same thing with respect to innovative asset classes and technologies, which is we need to have reasonable regulations in place and then allow a lot of freedom within that for people to make their decisions about what to do. We should never be perceived as being a merit regulator on the negative side or on the positive side. It's not my decision to whether or not you invest in crypto or whether or not you invest in particular shares of a particular company. It's my job to make sure the world is your oyster and you get to choose where you want to put your money.
Now, I, of course, would agree with a lot of the points, because Hester Peirce is one of our favorite guests that's ever come on Coinage, as she often does. And again, shout out to her and what she's been able to do under the Gary Gensler regime in supporting crypto and pushing pro-crypto policies here in the U.S. I think it's very important, so I just want to throw that out there first and give props where props are due, because in Crypto Mom we trust. But at the same time, Crypto Mom, I think, has a very tricky spot to be in now, because if you think about it, as we also heard from Gary Gensler, the SEC's main job is to protect trust in capital markets. And as big as crypto is, there is a much larger market that matters even more, and that is the stock market, bonds, treasuries, everything else the SEC wants to make sure is not fuddled with and that trust is not lost. And as we see, by the way, Eric Trump now walking into the Rotunda, there are a lot of live shots here that we might show you as the scenes continue in the Rotunda. You've got essentially the whole Trump family here walking in now with Ivanka, Eric, Don Jr., and Barron. Barron has entered the Rotunda, ladies and gents. We've got Barron Trump walking in. A lot of people have been interested to see what Barron's role is in all of this, kind of steering the ship when it comes to meme coins, people say. What Trump wants to do in crypto. He's a college student, so I don't know how true that is, but look, you don't need to have a degree to do crypto well. So there is a good shot. If I were Trump, I'd be listening to Barron too, probably, because younger people generally do know this stuff. Shout out to our younger coinage viewers, but not at the cost of our older coinage viewers. I want to say that. I respect you no matter what age you are. We love you around here at Coinage. We don't discriminate. Anyone can mint an NFT to co-own Coinage with us, along with the co-founder of Netflix and myself. I won't reveal my own age on this live stream with you right now, but I will say that we are open to anybody and everyone. If you want to mint an NFT right now to co-own Coinage and join the only community-owned media outlet in the game, you can head to coinage.media to do so and join us in the Discord as we plan out all of our shows and coverage and choose who to have on. It's a good way to democratize media, and if you believe Elon Musk, billionaires probably shouldn't be the only ones who own the media. So you can own a chunk of Coinage today if you would like to join the decentralized media revolution, as we look at a live stream from a government-funded media organization to bring you live coverage from Washington, D.C. on Trump's inauguration day, as we are now very close to seeing this all play out live for you, as we are waiting to hit that 12 noon mark to see President Trump take his oath of office, and Chief Justice John Roberts going to be delivering that for him. It is a momentous day as we see all these scenes play out for you. Of course, we are bringing you this news and this live stream in the context of the wider crypto market, as Bitcoin trades near an all-time high, despite what we saw play out over the weekend, some big shocks around the rest of crypto, and also, Solana and the like, as we saw a bunch of money move around in those launches. Texas, I'm not sure if you still are able to see my screen right now, but just kind of bringing up the Solana charts as we look at the last month. We had highlighted Solana as our crypto project of the year. It was voted on, by the way, by our members even before the Trump token launched. We did congratulate Solana on their victory as crypto project of the year. We do this every year. We had all the founders on. We had everybody on. Things got heated at some points. Things got personal at others. But what we try and do here is foster debate. And it was pretty interesting to see kind of, some of the people say, we're very happy with Solana. We like the speeds. We like the cheap costs. And very interesting to have Jesse Pollock from Base on Coinage to talk about how the Ethereum Layer 2 roadmap is still progressing as promised and is going to be successful this year. You, of course, can make your own calls on that. We're just here to give you the insights and hear it straight from the horse's mouth. But it was a very good debate that we had for Crypto Project of the Year, and after 16 teams were nominated, Solana took home the crown as Crypto Project of the Year 2024 and into 2025. So congrats to Tolly and co. and every other Solana builder that we had on to kind of highlight why that is. Again, want to get back to the live action here because we are looking at live shots of everybody in the attendance there in the Rotunda for the Trump inauguration. As I mentioned just a few moments ago, it's a who's who when it comes to the tech founders that are in attendance today. Texas, we can just stay on these live shots here just to see who is being profiled right now. But really, I think it's important to highlight the market cap that is in that room right now, because you got Jeff Bezos, you got Mark Zuckerberg, you got basically everybody in tech. Sam Altman, TikTok CEO, very interesting to have TikTok CEO there. And he even got Mike Pence. Mike Pence walking in the rotunda right now as we are seeing him, and everybody's standing up. Everybody's standing up right there for Mike Pence. That's a very interesting scene. I think as we've talked about and as everything played out, you think about January 6th, you think about what President Trump has done for the people who were there on January 6th. That's an interesting scene to see play out as Mike Pence gets a standing ovation. Interesting. If you're watching this live with us, throw some comments on here, because I think, I'm very curious to get takes of everybody else and what is happening with Trump's, not just his crypto goals, by the way, but really what's happening as he takes his oath of office and becomes president for a second time. And I think that is very telling, just seeing the standing ovation for Mike Pence. And now Hillary Clinton walking in here. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton walking in right now and also receiving applause. So you think about maybe all the things that have played out. That's interesting to see that scene as well. I think we can probably get ready to take some of this live here, Texas, with audio up, and I can step aside almost, depending on how we want to do this handoff here, because we are getting very close. Basically, everybody's there. It's a very interesting scene, too, because this was supposed to be outdoors, but it is now indoors. And I think what we can do here is take this bad boy live. I'm going to step aside. We'll continue with live coverage here on Coinage, giving you the context from a crypto point of view in terms of why this day matters, and what this means for the crypto markets. We'll be watching the prices of all of that play out. As right now, you have George W. Bush walking into the rotunda as well. We could potentially give you more insights here as we await for President Trump to actually step to the podium and take the oath of office, because this is the way that it works in the States. We have a lot of international viewers and co-owners with us as well. You might be like, hey, what the hell's going on down there? Well, this is what happens on a day like today. A lot of this has happened since 1985 in terms of, some of the more recent modern things that are introduced in terms of some of this, it wasn't always like this. The things that we're seeing play out today weren't always done this way. But I think it is, again, historic just for not only kind of who's in attendance right now, but also seeing this transition of power in a time where our country is so divided. Seeing Barack Obama, President Obama, walking out there now and seeing everyone greet him the way that they're greeting him. This is an exciting thing. This is a beautiful thing about America. I feel, as much as everything just happened this weekend and everyone's kind of, RIP to my mentions for President Trump retweeting my thread, and to Eric Trump retweeting my thread, regardless of what your political, alliances are, regardless of whether you're blue or red, if you're an American, we're seeing this play out, a transition of power right now in Washington, D.C. It's a very powerful moment. And look, I don't know what's to come. Nobody really knows what's to come over the next 4 years, but this right now is a powerful moment to appreciate in terms of a transition of power, a peaceful transition of power in what is the most important democracy in the world, from one of the most important economies in the world. And right now, stepping into the room, perhaps the most important judges in the world, as we're seeing the Supreme Court step into the rotunda as well, as basically everything's set. We're about 20 minutes away from the actual scheduled time of President Trump to take this inauguration. I think, Texas, if you're good, I can step aside and we can take live coverage of everything playing out in D.C. and come back to you on the other side as we continue to watch the markets for you, with Bitcoin trading near all-time highs. Let's take the audio now live from the rotunda for Trump's inauguration and swearing-in ceremony.
that there is literally a split screen moment in Washington. At the U.S. Capitol, we have been watching polite applause and greetings between, former presidents, members of the cabinet, the Supreme Court justices, very cordial, very in the spirit of upholding the traditions and customs of the peaceful transfer of power. And meanwhile, Stephanie is sitting there and listening to people react, the incoming president's supporters react in real time with cheers and boos for the people they like or don't like. And it made me think of something that Susan Page told me yesterday when I interviewed her on my show. She said, Donald Trump hasn't changed. Washington has changed. And we've been talking around that in terms of, well, there's a Republican House, a Republican Senate. But really, this town, Washington, has changed. And, to Senator Corker's point, it does give the president-elect, an opportunity to make good on the promises that he made. It's just a matter of, will he grab that opportunity? And one more thing. I remember back at the convention in Milwaukee when it was right after the first assassination attempt, and members of Congress coming on and saying, he's a changed man. We're going to see, he's transformed. We're going to see a different, more unifying Donald Trump. And that was the case the first 20 minutes. And then it went off the rails. He's also for this inaugural speech, he is saying he is going to, his speech will be one of unity. I'll believe it when I see it. I am not convinced. Look, like every American, I am hopeful, but I think as Senator Brown said, I'm also a realist.
Yeah, and I actually literally wrote that down before you started speaking about the exact same thing, that Washington has changed, but has Trump. And we know that personality-wise, he is still going to be the same person. The reaction to him is going to be fascinating to watch, of official Washington as well as unofficial Washington, i.e. regular people in their regular lives. And it also, listening to former Senator Corker, reminded of the conversations that probably a lot of us had on these panels, Republicans saying, just stick to the economy. Don't talk about, just talk about the economy. Don't talk about retribution. Don't talk about going after your enemies. Just focus on the things people care about. And he would do that, and then he would move off of that topic. So I think we're going to see, maybe we may see a very different Donald Trump at this inaugural speech versus what he shows at the convention center / parade later this afternoon.
David, what do you make of that dissonance?
Yeah, well, first I want to say I'm disappointed there are more tech billionaires. Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos. I actually think the tech billionaires have a positive influence on him, because on tariffs, on H-1B visas, I like the influence they're going to have. Nonetheless, as Jeff mentioned, it's not okay that they're up there. They should be in the audience. They should not be intermingled with the cabinet. That's a blurring of lines between public service and private interest.
Better seats than the cabinet.
It's better seats. So it's like William McKinley were inaugurated, and there was J.P. Morgan and Andrew Carnegie. Like we would blink at that. And so the blurring of those lines to me is a problem.
Is there a benefit, though, that it's so transparent? Is there a benefit in the transparency of the transaction?
Maybe, and if he does, as I said, this electoral monarchy part, that he is a transactional president, if I want Elon Musk to like me, so I'll do what Elon Musk likes. And that's why they all went to Mar-a-Lago. That's why they're all there, because they think he's transactional.
Tiffany, what do you make of that?
Well, I think it's the picture, right, that this is the doers and the disruptors versus the establishment, right? So this DC is different. It's going to have to change. Trump is bringing in people from the outside, and it's not business as usual. It's not politics as usual with the establishment that we've seen, even in the Republican Party, for many years. That's why you were hearing people boo on some of the Republicans walking in. Times have changed, and I think it just shows the vision that Trump has going forward.
I mean, Kevin, to that point, as Stephanie told us earlier, they were booing Mike Pence in the arena when he walked into the Capitol.
And he's establishment.
Look, Jonathan Capart's analysis of this is exactly right, and I agree with it 100%. And I think the Pence isolation, where Pence is there on his own, sort of represents where the Pence people are inside the party. This is Donald Trump's party. He has all the support, he has the infrastructure, he has the momentum, he has control. I also think that what Jonathan pointed out about the sort of split screen, which is the polite applause, the focus on bipartisanship, the focus on substance, the focus on comedy inside the Capitol.
Comedy,
versus,
C-O-M-I-T-Y, not comedy funny.
C-O-M-I-T. Versus the way politics is going to be litigated over the next 4 years and probably in the future, which is at the Capital One Center, which is, it's part UFC, WWF event and part political rally. Donald Trump is going to have a very unifying message today. He is. I mean, just by the sartorial communications of his tie, which is purple, we're going to see a unifying message. But the next day, or even later today, 24 hours from now, a single-minded pursuit that is going to, if he's going to achieve what he wants to do, is going to be fueled by a lot of partisanship and a lot of the passions of his activist base. So, and let's enjoy the sort of pageantry of today, but I think that's where we go in the next 48 hours.
We've been talking a lot about Donald Trump. Let's talk about J.D. Vance as we await his arrival and the arrival of his wife, Usha Vance, because he will be likely the inheritor of this movement. He is all of 40 years old, the first millennial vice president. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot riding on all of this for him, is there not, Kevin?
Yeah, I think, he's in many ways, you mentioned this earlier, Jeff, with the fact that Donald Trump is a lame duck president. There is an inheritance that comes with J.D. Vance's ascension to the vice presidency today. He will essentially be curating the MAGA agenda and the MAGA approach for policymaking, potentially after this White House as a party leader going forward. So I think this is essentially the sort of starter's pistol for J.D. Vance's role in growing the party, not just over the last campaign, but also the many years that are ahead.
And it goes to Tiffany's point about disruptors, which is really important to appreciate and understand how important this is to our politics. And that, who knows, 4 years from now, J.D. Vance is the establishment, and that there is a disruptor that says, we don't want to do things the way that these guys did it. Yeah. I'm the one that can actually deliver on the things that J.D. Vance and Trump were unable to do. So I do think we are entering this time. We've had, in our last 10 elections, we've had 9 change elections. Mm-hmm. This is the first time since the last time we had a second consecutive first-term president, so a non-consecutively elected president, that we've had 3 occupants of the White House in 3 consecutive elections lose. And so we are in a time of incredible disruption, and that I don't think that what is happening here is about what I think makes America so great, is that there is continuity. It's more than just pageantry. This is making a statement about how important it is to have the peaceful transfer of power. But our politics is driven by a country that is evenly divided at 48, 49%. Yeah. And where the disruptors are is whoever's the party or the vision that's out of power. And we're going, I don't know when this ends, but it sure doesn't feel like this is the end of it.
Judy, to that point, this idea of disruption, I know you've been traveling the country, talking to a lot of people about their political views, including supporters of Mr. Trump. The fact that he has managed to hang on to, sustain this idea that he's an outsider. As a former president who now has complete control over one of our 2 major political parties, that idea is central to his popularity among his supporters, right?
It is, and you have to give him credit for pulling off the feat of winning re-election after losing, although he didn't acknowledge that he lost in 2020. But to Amy's point, I mean, this was a close election. Donald Trump won less than 50% of the vote. I think the final number is 49.8 to Kamala Harris's 48.4. So 1.5% difference in the total. Yes, he won the swing states, but we are a very divided country. And the other split screen I want to mention is one in our memories, and that is 4 years ago, in January of 2021, on the steps of the Capitol, and then inside the Capitol, the attack by supporters of Donald Trump. And I think of Mike Pence, the vice president here. 4 years ago, there was a noose that was built on the outside of the Capitol. So there are a number of split split screens that we are thinking about today.
Tiffany, how are Trump supporters making sense of that moment, that split screen to keep this metaphor going? The sense that in this very room, Trump supporters, rioters laid siege to that Capitol in an effort to overturn Joe Biden's election victory.
Yeah, that was a dark day in our history for sure, but and those that broke the law, should be held to that standard. But again, anytime the media starts to talk about January 6th, the American people tune out. It's time to move forward, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing here today. That we are a country that can go through hard things. Democracy can be messy sometimes, and it can, create great change at the same time. So I am hopeful. I think President Trump's address will lay out a vision for our country. Leading up to the election, I believe it was about 78% of Americans actually felt that their children's future wouldn't be any better than theirs. And that's a dark place to be in this country. So I think it's about moving forward, and Donald Trump will lay out a vision for this country to give parents, hardworking, working-class Americans hope for the future, and that's where the focus is.
As we watch this live picture unfold inside the Capitol Rotunda, of course, senior members of Congress, former presidents, their spouses, Supreme Court justices, all gathered in this space. Very different from the tableau we would have expected had it been held outside, with some 250,000 people receiving tickets. And there we see Usha Vance, wife of Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, making her way in, and, of course, First Lady-elect Melania Trump as well. Jonathan, this idea that as we welcome in a new administration, we're saying goodbye to another, among the many actions we expect President-elect Trump to take today will really be an undoing of much of what President Biden put into place as well. How do Democrats view that in terms of the places they do want to be able to work together with Republicans moving forward?
Yeah, as we have seen over the last few elections, the incoming president tries mightily to undo the legacy of his predecessor. We saw that with Trump when it came to Obama. And I think we're going to see this now with Trump when it comes to President Biden. But again, I go back to what I said earlier, which is this is a different time than it was in 2017. And that Democrats, if they're the grown-up party, they're the party that cares about governing. And so they're going to have to pick and choose their battles. They can't have hair on fire over every tweet, every utterance. They have to pay attention to what soon-to-be President Trump says, what his cabinet officials have to say, and then what they try to do in the Congress, and figure out where they should push back, where they should work together. But my hunch is there won't be many places where they can work together.
David, also, it strikes me this time, President-elect Trump has a very different relationship with Congress than he did last time. In the previous term, it was really a reliance upon Mike Pence as his conduit to Congress. He has his own relationship with Speaker Johnson now, his own relationship with senior members of the Senate. To the extent he is a lame duck president and that he can't run again, for these first 2 years, what does that mean for how quickly and effectively he's able to actually have an impact?
It's obviously extremely small minorities. And the one thing I would say is that all the executive orders that he's reversing today, that's a problem with the dysfunction of our democracy. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to pass laws in Congress and the president signs it into bill. As that is broken down, executive orders have taken over governance to the extent where Donald Trump sometimes doesn't seem to understand the distinction. And so the TikTok was a law passed by Congress and signed by the president. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump seems to think that he can issue an executive order to overturn a law passed by Congress and signed by the president. Mm-hmm. That's against the rules. And so that's part of the decay of our democracy.
Let's dip into this and listen to tenor Christopher Macchio perform "Oh America."
I will keep you in my keeping till there'll be understood. it's grand, and all through this land, you are beautiful to me. Oh, America, you're calling. Oh, I can hear you calling me. You're calling me to pay true to thee, true to thee. Oh, I will be.
Vice President-elect J.D. Vance making his way into the Capitol. We expect President-elect Trump to be entering shortly as well. Former Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown has been with us this morning watching this all unfold. Senator Brown, your thoughts on this moment as we await just moments away from when President-elect Trump will be sworn back into office?
Yeah, I find this sort of theme of a couple of speakers, I can't see them on the screen, but I think it was a Trump spokesperson talking about disrupting, that it's no longer corporate interest and no longer the people who ran the Republican Party. I find it, if not for the seriousness that I find amusing, that they're saying that Trump isn't going to listen to Wall Street anymore, isn't going to listen to the big corporate CEOs, he's going to listen to these California billionaires. I mean, the three of the richest people in the world are sitting on that platform with him. They all want tax cuts. They all want weaker consumer protections. They all want weaker worker safety rules. And so what gives? I mean, he's still going to provide. The Republican mantra for years has always been more tax cuts for the rich, more tax cuts for large corporations. I don't see any movement away from that. But at the same time, he's clearly listening to billionaires. One of them, as we know, on the stage gave $250 million to the president's campaign. So it's not like disruption means it's all about a focus on workers. Disruption means, well, we won't do quite as much for corporate America. We're going to take care of these newly minted, in some cases, DECA or CENTA, if that's the word, CENTA billionaires. So I don't find much change. And I don't, again, politics is not left or right. It's whose side you're on. And I think the president today needs to essentially say to the public, I'm not going to let these billionaires run the country. They help my campaign, but I'm going to look out for workers. I hope he does that. I'm always optimistic. I just don't really see it coming.
Well, President-elect Trump is now making his way into the Capitol. Tiffany Smiley, as we watch this live picture, I believe Senator Brown was referring to what you mentioned earlier about the disruptors. Care to respond?
Yeah, I mean, look, these people worked with Biden as well, but they also know that President Trump will deliver. So unfortunately, over the last 4 years, the economy, it hasn't worked for the working class. It hasn't worked for an average American who has lost nearly $33,000 over the last 4 years under Bidenomics. So I think Trump is just painting a picture. Trump is Trump, and he will always do what he wants to do. And he will always do what's best for America and the American people. I think he's just showing like, hey, look, I'm bringing people from all walks of life. This isn't just D.C. This isn't just the establishment, and we are going to solve these problems that are facing the American people.
Former and future First Lady Melania Trump has made her way inside the Capitol Rotunda. Former Republican Senator Bob Corker has been with us all morning. Senator Corker, we saw a moment ago the arrival of House and Senate leaders. How do you expect the House and Senate in this go-round to be a check on executive power?
I think they're going to be a check, and I just had a conversation with John Thune casually on the Senate floor. I escorted a new senator, someone who's being sworn in about on January 3rd. But I think they will be a check. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more communication. There's going to be a lot more communication between the two than has happened in the past. Obviously, Senator McConnell and President Trump didn't communicate that much. Thune and the president will. And then, look, in the House, you've got some independent Republicans over there. Obviously, the Democratic side is going to be a check. I think that people this time, though, are going to pick and choose. I think there's going to be more prudence in the way that they check, understanding the capital that the president comes in with, political capital. I do want to say one other thing. I enjoyed being on with Senator Brown, and I think what both of us are doing today in our different ways with a different focus is we're trying to be aspirational, meaning that we're hopeful that Senator Brown is hopeful that the president is going to focus on workers and their needs, an issue that he's always talked about. We came in together in 2007, elected in 2006. I, too, am trying to be aspirational, and I think that is the way that both the House and Senate in some ways will be. Can they influence the president to stay focused, to move in a direction that is good for our country? I think that's the mode that everyone around is going to be, hopeful that somehow the president will stay focused, that he'll try to bring out the best in all of us. And we're going to see in just a few moments whether that's his first step here at the inaugural speech.
Indeed. We'll end on that moment of hope, that note of hope, and go inside the Capitol Rotunda to watch this inaugural proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President-elect of the United States, the Honorable J.D. Vance. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President-elect, the Staff Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Elizabeth Farah, House Sergeant-at-Arms, the Honorable William P. McFarland, Senate Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, the Honorable Jennifer A. Hemingway, Senate Majority Leader, the Honorable John Thune, and the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steve Scalise, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson, Senate Democratic Leader, the Honorable Charles E. Schumer, Ranking Member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Fischer, and Chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar. Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome the chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 60th presidential inauguration. Today, President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Vance will take their oaths of office, and we will witness the peaceful transfer of power at the heart of our democracy. For the past year, I've chaired the inaugural ceremony committee, which includes the leadership of Congress from both parties. We thank the committee and Capitol staff and law enforcement who worked so hard over the last year, and especially the last 3 days. You've done a beautiful job, and you have shown grace under pressure. Our theme this year is our enduring democracy. The presence of so many presidents and vice presidents here today is truly a testament to that endurance. We welcome President Biden and Dr. Biden. We welcome Vice President Harris and Doug Emhoff, President Obama, President Clinton and Secretary Clinton, President Bush and Laura Bush, Vice President Pence, Vice President Quayle and Marilyn Quayle. The justices of the United States Supreme Court are with us, all 9 of them I counted, and of course the Trump and Vance families. This ceremony marks what will soon be 250 years of our democracy. It is the moment when leaders elevated by the will of the people promise to be faithful to our Constitution, to cherish and defend it. It is the moment when they become, as we all should be, the guardians of our country. Through war and peace, through adversity and prosperity, we hold this inauguration every 4 years, and today it falls on Martin Luther King Day, a further reminder that we must strive to uphold the values enshrined in our Constitution, the freedoms, the liberties, and, as is inscribed on the entrance of the United States Supreme Court, equal justice under law. But what makes this moment more than a passing ceremony is all who are watching it across the country, the people of this nation, the ordinary people doing extraordinary things. President Kennedy, who at one point worked as a senator in this building and would often walk through this very rotunda, once said, "In a democracy, every citizen, regardless of interest in politics, holds office. Every one of us is in a position of responsibility." With that responsibility of citizenship comes an obligation not to seek out malice, as President Lincoln once reminded us, but to view others with a generosity of spirit despite our differences. With that responsibility of leadership comes an obligation to stand our ground when we must and find common ground when we can. With everything swirling around us, the hot mess of division, it is on all of us, to quote an incredible songwriter who just happened to be born in my state, to ensure that our nation's democracy is our shelter from the storm. There's a reason this ceremony takes place at the Capitol. In other countries, it might be in a presidential palace or a gilded executive office building. Here, it is traditionally held at the Capitol, the People's House. It is a fitting reminder of the system of checks and balances that is the very foundation of our government. 3 equal branches of government. That is how, for nearly 250 years, our great American experiment, grounded in the rule of law, has endured. So, as we inaugurate a new president and vice president, let us remember that the power of those in this room comes from the people. The construction workers who build our country, the teachers and healthcare workers who nurture us, the troops defending our freedoms, and yes, the firefighters in Los Angeles putting themselves on the line for us. Our democracy's strength and grit must match theirs. May God bless our nation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Endurance through the years is the ultimate test. To persevere through time is the truest measure of an idea, an institution, and a nation. Our founders wrote the Constitution so that America could withstand all the twists and turns of time. They wrote it to guide us and to preserve forever our right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as much as the truths and principles enshrined in our Constitution remain the same, our democracy promises the American people the power to change, to chart their own destiny. That's the beauty. That is the importance of democracy. It allows the endurance, the permanence of a nation through change. It allows nations like our United States both to avoid the obstacles and to seize the opportunities God has placed before us, all while staying true to our founding principles. Today is our country's 60th inauguration ceremony. Like all the others before it, it is a celebration of our right to set our uniquely American course. The past several years have been trying at times for many, many Americans, and also for the nations of the free world that we humbly strive to lead. In November, Americans chose again to steer this nation towards greatness, the secure, safe, and prosperous future that our founders envisioned for all of us. And today, we celebrate not only their decision to do so, but also the simple right and wisdom of a free people to make their own choice so that their nation might endure. And now, allow me to welcome Archbishop Timothy Dolan and Reverend Franklin Graham, who will deliver our invocation. Please rise.
Be still and know that I am God, supreme among the nations, supreme on the earth. Let us pray. Remembering General George Washington on his knees at Valley Forge, recalling Abraham Lincoln at his second inaugural, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right. remembering General George Patton's instructions to his soldiers as they began the Battle of the Bulge 8 decades ago. Pray. Pray when fighting. Pray alone. Pray with others. Pray by night. Pray by day. Observing the birthday of the Reverend Martin Luther King, who warned, without God, our efforts turn to ashes. We, blessed citizens of this one nation under God, humbled by our claim that in God we trust, gather indeed this inauguration day to pray for our President Donald J. Trump, his family, his advisors, his cabinet, his aspirations, his vice president, for the Lord's blessings upon Joseph Biden, for our men and women in uniform, for each other whose hopes are stoked this new year, this inauguration day. We cannot err in relying upon that prayer from the Bible, upon which our president will soon place his hand in oath, as we make our own the supplications of King Solomon for wisdom as he began his governance. God of our fathers, in your wisdom you set man to govern your creatures, to govern in holiness and justice, to render justice with integrity. Give our leader wisdom, for he is your servant, aware of his own weakness and brevity of life. If wisdom which comes not from you be not with him, he shall be held in no esteem. Send wisdom from heavens that she may be with him, that he may know your designs. Please, God, bless America. Please, mend her every flaw. You are the God in whom we trust, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Mr. President, the last 4 years, there are times I'm sure you thought it was pretty dark. But look what God has done. We praise him and give him glory. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, thou hast said, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. As the prophet Daniel prayed, blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings. He raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Our Father, today, as President Donald J. Trump takes the oath of office once again, we come to say thank you, O Lord our God. Father, when Donald Trump's enemies thought he was down and out, you and you alone saved his life and raised him up with strength and power by your mighty hand. We pray for President Trump that you'll watch over, protect, guide, direct him. Give him your wisdom from your throne on high. We ask that you would bless him and that our nation would be blessed through him. We also ask that you would bless and protect Melania as First Lady. We thank you for the beauty, the warmth, and grace that she shows not only to this nation, but to the whole world. We thank you for Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and his wife Usha and their young family. May he be a strength to President Trump, to stand beside him, to hold up his arms like Aaron held up the arms of Moses in the midst of battle. The prophet Samuel reminded the people, it was you that brought them up from the land of Egypt. And he said, now stand still that I may reason with you before the Lord. So Father, we take this moment to stand still, to remember the great things that you have done for this nation. Thank you for the protection, the bounty, the freedoms that we so enjoy. We remember to keep our eyes fixed on you, and may our hearts be inclined to your voice. We know that America can never be great again if we turn our backs on you. We ask for your help, and we pray all of this in the name of the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, your Son, my Savior, and our Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Associate Justice Kavanaugh to administer the Vice Presidential Oath of Office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith
That I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same.
and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely
That I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
on which I am about to enter.
on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Justice Roberts to administer the Presidential Oath of Office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
terrible swift sword is rooted in Christ was born across the sea, with our glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free while God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
It is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you the 45th and the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, thank you very, very much. Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Senator Thune, Chief Justice Roberts, Justices of the United States Supreme Court, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and my fellow citizens. The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. And our top priority will be to create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, been treated so badly. And other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago. Or more recently, Los Angeles, where we're watching fires still tragically burn from weeks ago without even a token of defense. They're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have a home any longer. That's interesting. But we can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly. My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That is why each day under our administration of American patriots, we will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. As our victory showed, the entire nation is rapidly unifying behind our agenda with dramatic increases in support from virtually every element of our society, young and old, men and women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, urban, suburban, rural, and very importantly, we had a powerful win in all 7 swing states, and the popular vote, we won by millions of people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true. Thank you. Thank you. National unity is now returning to America, and confidence and pride is soaring like never before. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country, we will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God. Can't do that. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. Illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families. Thank you. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. We will not be deterred. Together we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation, and right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We are going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
as newly sworn in, now President Trump, speaking to the American people for the first time as the 47th President of the United States, promising what he called a golden age of America beginning today, and repeating many of the messages he often says in his rally speeches and campaign remarks along the way over the last couple of years. Also noting this is, for himself, a remarkable political comeback and promising a new age for America ahead. We're waiting now for